How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. What was that song that just played, Ryan?
I don't know. I think it may have been a riff of 1000 by this really cool guy that I know that did it for me.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I think...
Do you know what his name was? What was his name?
Oh, I think it might have been at Jake Weller Official on Instagram if anybody wanted to. Yeah, you can go look up Jake Weller on Spotify.
You may want to check out his album Wasting Time.
Yeah. Highlight songs that I would recommend are 1000, Lonely Friends, Quiet Town, Wasting Time.
Yesterday was my favorite.
No, Yesterday. I think it's either a good or a bad sign that everybody has different favorites, you know? I can't tell which, you know?
Well, I feel like that album had a lot to say.
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah,
it was mostly saying I'm sad and alone, but it...
but it had a lot to say in different ways.
Yeah, it was a lot of different ways of saying that, and I don't feel like that anymore. So
I'm glad.
Me too. Life is better.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've been reading 14 by Peter Clines. And it is a book. Tell them all about the book, Ryan.
There's been this crazy mystery surrounding the Kavach building. All of the apartments are different and weird, and nobody knows why, and they investigated it, and they found out why. And the reason why is because the Kavach building is a machine designed to prevent an apocalypse.
Oh, yeah.
Basically... when the population of Earth reaches somewhere around the vicinity of 1.5 billion, then the barriers separating our world from another will break down, and giant Cthulhu-style monsters will kill us all.
Oh, yeah.
And so 100 years ago, back before we reached that number... some very smart people who were dismissed as quacks made this building.
And now we're here.
Our boy Nate got fucked.
Oh, he absolutely did. That man went balls deep. So let's get functionally literate and jump back in.
Chapter 63. How much of the group drank beer on the sun deck? So, Tim, Nate, Zila, Veek, Mandy, Clive, and Debbie all meet up on the sun deck. We find out very quickly that everyone knows that Nate and Veek are fucking because it's summer and everyone has their windows open.
Yeah, which means that it must have been loud.
Oh, man.
No secrets in the Kavach building. Except for all the secrets in the Kavach building.
I gotta say, this is a very common thing.
Is it?
Oh, well, I mean, for me it is. When
fair.
I first started dating my wife, everyone in the firehouse, they knew.
That's fair.
And I did not know that they knew until they told me, hey, listen, I'm happy for you, but could you quiet down?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, oops,
yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, despite the, people knowing, they continued drinking beer and hanging out on the roof.
Yeah, fortunately, Andrew missed that part. Because after Nate finds out this information... Actually, you know what I thought was interesting? Veek had nothing to say about it.
Why did you think that was interesting?
Because I feel like Veek would be embarrassed and there would have been something in the narration commenting on that.
I kind of feel you there, yeah. But I guess she's not embarrassed about it. That would just mean that she's not embarrassed about it. But I don't fucking know. I feel like...
I don't know. I just feel like there should have been some reference
to how she reacted.
Veek.
Yeah, to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is...
But anyways, yeah, Andrew comes up, and he brought celery sticks and saltines.
Mm-hmm. Vic was like, thank you.
Yeah, she made a point of thanking him.
Thank you for bringing snacks.
Yeah, and they're all drinking beer, except for Andrew. He gets bottled water, which when they discussed in a prior chapter last episode, we glossed over that. When they discussed meeting up on the roof, Andrew once again made a whole thing about how, alcohol is the devil's work or some shit. And Tim was like, I'll bring a bottled water just for you.
Which, to be fair, he did.
He did.
Tim is very kind. He's a kind-hearted man.
Yeah, and so then, everyone wanted to know if Nate was okay. He said he was, and then everyone was like, what happened? And he told them. And this information just fucking shocked Andrew.
Yeah, so when I was listening to this, I was like, ooh, they're hanging around on Andrew's reaction a lot. And the way that Andrew was reacting, I was like, oh.
He was just fucking bug-eyed, and then he tuned out.
Yeah.
And while they were talking, and then he tuned back in, and when he tuned back in, all he wanted to know was a very specific piece of information. He harped on this a couple times. He's like, I'm sorry, I just want to be clear. The building is the machine? He wanted to confirm this twice.
Yeah. So, and I think, so there was one particular point where, something really clicked for me in this. Because it was I have been suspicious of Andrew. He's been a bit of a fucking quack and a weirdo this whole time. Very religious freak vibes. But he was it was the very last bit that he does where he's so you said he confirms a couple of times, but then he falls silent again. And he's and so the whole building is the machine and the control room is in Debbie and Clive's room. And they're yes. And then it fucking clicked in my brain. So, I guess this is my fucking, feeble construct in my mind. Earlier on in the chapters when Nate finds Kotorovich in the cupboard, he's hiding. Yeah. I'm because I've been thinking this whole time, the family, they've known that the building has been here. This whole time. They've known since Kotorovich died, but they haven't known where the machine is in the building. But they've known where the building was. And so I was and I know kind of they have to become relevant again because it's fiction. And so I'm the family's right. Not gone. They're just lurking and they're trying to work out what's going on with the building. And then the second Andrew confirmed every point, I was oh, he's not a fucking Christian quack. He's a fucking cultist.
He's a cultist quack, yeah.
He's a cultist quack. And it was there. And it's so annoying that I didn't clock it earlier. Because I clocked it and then the chapter changed. And we finally got a new perspective. And the new perspective was from the guy who...
in the green Taurus.
Yeah, is the PI for Tim.
I'm going to stop you there because there's a couple more things in this chapter we should discuss before moving on to the next one.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I worked out the Andrew was a cultist, and while this whole chapter was happening, I was oh my god, he's a cultist, and I kind of didn't catch anything else that they talked about. Because I was too excited.
I mean, not a ton really happened in this chapter outside of that context, right?
Yeah.
Because they were all talking about this stuff and they were talking about Mrs. Knight being gone, but Andrew and Mandy are out of the loop of some things, right?
Yeah.
Mandy was did something happen to Mrs. Knight?
Yeah.
And they didn't tell her what happened. They were just
she left.
She went away for a while.
And then Mandy's
because of what y'all were doing. And Debbie was like, yes, because of what we were doing and
Mhm.
because of how frosty she was.
Mandy kind of like backed off and was like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I won't press anymore. I think that's like a plausible deniability.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Mandy doesn't really want to know.
no, she doesn't. She doesn't.
Another little thing, Tim mentioned how he got a big bag of cat food for the cats and he slashed it up in a way that made it look like the cats would have ripped it open.
Yeah.
And then he pointedly said to Debbie, for the record, those cats were so big and practically round, they would have been fine.
At least the racist old red shit was kind to her cats. You know? You know, maybe we can be sad just because she was nice to cats.
Yeah, so then the chapter ends with them toasting the people who built the building, like, hey, thank you guys for saving all of our lives. And Andrew looked confused, but then he smiled. And then they all drank and just looked at the sunset, and that's how the chapter ends.
Yeah. And I was what was it? I was excited. I was like, the family. And I didn't think it was going to happen right away, and it did happen right away. Chapter 64. How the family of the Red Death invaded the Kvatch building. I thought I was, like, really far ahead of the curve. I thought I was, like, working something out, before I was supposed to, and I got really excited by it.
You thought this shit wasn't going to happen for, like, another 10 chapters or something.
Yeah, literally. And then it was, like, the very next chapter, and then I felt like I was just an average person. I felt less like a Sherlock, like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to stop it if I was there, if I'd worked it out on the day, I would have been just as fucked as they are.
So this chapter starts from the point of view of the man in the green Taurus. We learn that his name is Carmichael.
Oh yeah.
We learn that he hates his job assignment, which that's no surprise.
No. And that his job assignment is Tim for 24 hours surveillance. But they mention if he was keeping surveillance, that like people with normal jobs, like his normal assignments and stuff aren't as important as Tim is. And it's like, so they wouldn't really warrant 24 hours surveillance. Whereas like Tim has a very special skill set that requires a lot of attention to be paid to him. And I was like,
for 18 months.
Yeah.
And then 5 years of monitoring after that.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, who the fuck is Tim?
Who the fuck is Tim? Yeah, because not even Carmichael knows who the fuck Tim is.
Literally. And then we don't really get much more explanation as to what's going on with Carmichael. We have if Carmichael doesn't send some sort of update within X amount of time, then alarms go off,
Right.
Um,
So, like a bunch of people start congregating in front of the building, and he recognizes that none of these people live here because he's gotten very familiar with the people that live around here by now, because he's been here for like almost 3 months now. So he shoots off a message, and then this old, like, Middle Eastern Slavic lady, like, comes up to his driver's side window.
mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, can you tell me the directions? I've gotten lost. And he's like, I can't help you. I don't live around here.
Yeah.
And then she just fucking breaks his windpipe and kills him.
So it describes this part as like he's kind of ignoring her a little bit. He's focused on writing up the report to send on like the people turning up. And then when he does look at her, it's described as she's wearing a Halloween mask. And then it's like, oh, no. And then he realized that it wasn't. It's a Halloween mask. And then by the time he had convinced himself enough that it wasn't a Halloween mask and reached for his gun, his windpipe had already been crushed. And then fair play to him, because even after the windpipe had been crushed, he tried to get his gun up to shoot her in the face still.
Yeah.
But then he was slammed against the steering wheel, and the airbag went off, and he died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rip Green
And then
Taurus, man.
Andrew's like, Auntie, are you done over there?
Yeah. And I was like, this motherfucker, this creepy fucking creep. And yeah, and then they go inside.
And the POV here shifts to Clive, who he was in his apartment with Debbie. Debbie is freaked out. She wants to move, and Clive is like, "Let's be realistic. Like, we're never gonna find a place as good as this."
Yeah.
And she like, if we were, we'd have to like, it would be somewhere out in the bay, or I don't remember exactly where he said, but it was somewhere far away. And like, Debbie was like, "That wouldn't be so bad," and he's just like, "Honey, it would. Like, you hate long drives. Like, this is our best option." And she just like kind of folds her arms. And like, Clive has been with this woman long enough to know that that's not a good sign. So he's like, "What's bothering you?" And she's like, "Everything's bothering me."
And I think it's like it's like everything's bothering her because it's not bothering anyone else, or it doesn't seem like it's bothering anyone else.
She really doesn't like that everybody is shrugging off Mrs. Knight's death, that nobody seems to care. And then this is when Clive touches on what you've been commenting about, like, after she died, like in the last episode and a little bit in this episode.
Yeah.
He's like, "Look, this is gonna sound mean, but I want you to hear me out, right? Like, none of us really knew Mrs. Knight.
Mm-hmm.
She was an old, cranky lady that nobody ever really saw, who had a bit of a racist streak. Even you thought that.
Yeah.
It's not a big loss for us because none of us really knew her. Like, and because before he said all that, like, she was like, "What if it had been you?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what really kind of like, and we may have breezed over this in last episode, I think it was something that we moved past, is they didn't know Mrs. Knight to such a degree that they don't know her first name.
No.
So not even she was able to think, or she just knew it began with an L. Linda
And Tim
or
confirmed
Lisa.
that because
or...
an L was on her mailbox.
Exactly. So like, it's literally who the fuck is this person? Nobody knows. And then she's like, they would have done the same thing to you. And he's like, actually, they definitely wouldn't have. You know, they wouldn't be this passive about me dying.
Like, they're our friends.
Yeah. They are literally their friends. And they've all done this investigation together. Mrs. Knight was late to the investigation. She was kind of, grumpy in all of their meetings. Not that she deserved to die, but she was like the most red shit to die. Like that's literally that's like the only way I can think of to describe it. If there was anyone to die, it would be her.
Then Clive joked that if he had died, Nate would have totally made a pass at Debbie because she's just so damn hot. And then she's like, "Language." And then there was this little interaction, this little bit of dialogue that I thought was really cute, because Debbie was like, "I love you, you know that?" And he was like, "I think it came up at the wedding."
That was very cute.
I thought that was very cute. Yeah. And so then someone's pounding at their door, and
I was thinking here, I was like, because I knew this was going to be the family, it's like obvious that this is going to be the family.
Right, of course.
But I was like, I wonder how grim the family are going to be in this interaction, I was like, look, we've had a lot of mystery and a lot of like intrigue. We've had a little bit of violence here and there, but I was like, I don't know how. I was very interested to see how violent the cult would be. And it
right out of the gate
violent, surprising, but also less violent than I had anticipated.
You thought they were just going to like kill Clive and Debbie outright?
I thought Clive and Debbie were dead. I was like, what happens is she looks through the peephole, sees Andrew and a bunch of people she's never seen before, and is like, that's weird. Opens the door, and is like, can I help you? And then Andrew's like, I'm sorry about this, and just fucking smacks her.
Yeah.
and
Backhanded her.
and it's described as like he didn't have the heart to close his fist.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I don't know. I felt like that was just a really interesting point.
Well, it's I once heard a long time ago, like, the thing about evil is not everyone is completely evil. Like, you could have a serial killer. You could have a person that's a serial killer. But that person could also, like, really have a passion for cooking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, nobody is realistically, like, just cartoonishly kick the dog evil. And so, like, I think it brings, like, however slight, a level of nuance to Andrew, right? Like, Andrew is part of a doomsday cult, and the entire time we've been interacting with Andrew, he, like, is constantly harping on people about what they need to do for salvation. So I can understand why he would, like, have a little bit of hesitancy about just outright punching a woman in the face.
Yeah, but, like, they've literally just ripped a man's throat out.
Oh, yeah. Auntie did. Absolutely. Auntie's the lady you don't want to fuck with.
Yeah. Also, this was really interesting. So, and this makes me think that, well, I mean, the first thing that made me question their humanity was was Auntie, the description of Auntie. Because she was, like, very sickly.
Just that fucking plastic face.
Yeah, and then, like, the weird grey face and the buggish eyes and stuff. And then...
2 big mouths.
Yeah, fucking bizarre. Like, oh, they're not human, And then the thing that made me question Andrew's humanity as well was Clive tries to, like, dive in to protect... I've forgotten her name. Debbie. Yeah, so he dives in to try and save Debbie. And it's described as he'd been hit over the head with a 2x4 in his life. And Andrew's backhanded fist hit way harder than that 2x4. Which I was like, how is he so fucking freakishly strong?
Yeah. One of the men put his foot on him, I think, and, like, it seemed like it wasn't a real foot, like it was a cyborg foot.
Yeah, very gangly, weird, like...
I think, if I remember correctly, it was described as, like, a club foot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think I missed that bit, like, in listening. But yeah, it's... They're not quite right. They're just described as none of them are quite...
And this is very in line with H.P. Lovecraft's stories. Like, in a lot of his stories, there are just, like, freakish mutant people that are just kind of described as, like, just off. Like, they're not quite right.
Yeah. Do you think Peter Clines was like, I just want to write Lovecraft and see?
Oh, absolutely. So this is the first in a series of books that follow this continuity.
Really?
It's the rest of the books, they don't center around this cast of characters, but there are other stories that take place in this world.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I mean,
yeah,
kind of makes sense. I don't know if I like the idea of... So maybe this is just my fucking preference on it, but it's like taking enough source material in ideas and concepts from someone else's writing and pretty much just changing, like, the era that it happens in, Or, like,
you don't like it?
I'm not a fan. Like the idea that it's like. Because he's kind of just writing, like, a modern day H.P. Lovecraft book at this point then, or, like, taking enough notes from it, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's
See, that's what
strange.
I do like about it.
That's interesting.
Because this is a common thing. Like throughout history, like people will take inspiration from
True.
long dead writers.
Yeah.
Like hell, like look at mythology, right?
Yeah.
Like our understanding of mythology, it was an ever evolving thing. Like specifically, like look at Greek mythology. Like Hesiod wrote a lot of stories about the Greek gods, but it was all inspired by stories that had already been told about those Greek gods. He just put his own spin on it. A spin that I find distasteful personally, but he still did that. And that is what, like him and Homer, like they're the ones that kind of inspired like a lot of our understanding of the Greek myths. And if they hadn't written those stories, we would have still had versions of those stories, just older.
Yeah, I get you. I still don't know. I'll have to work out and try and decide. I'll think about it more, try and decide how I feel about it. It's just it's making me, I don't know. It doesn't feel as original as it did when I first started reading this book. Do you get what I mean?
So I do, and I've grappled with that, not with this book, but I have grappled with that, like the idea that there's like no truly original stories.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact of the matter is that really is true. There's nothing truly original.
Yeah.
Everything everyone comes up with is in some way inspired by something that they have seen or heard before.
I guess not. Maybe original was the wrong word then, but as interesting, I guess, because he's pointed out in his own story where he's pulling directly all of his inspiration from, and then is complete, like, not necessarily trying to hide it, but not really putting enough of a spin on it, I guess. Maybe I'll have to go read some Lovecraft and see.
You should.
I think
honestly,
I will.
Because like that's something that's on Zach's list, right? Like when we first started this podcast, we were talking about like we want to read like the roots of like swords and sorcery fantasy, and on that list was the Cthulhu mythos.
Yeah.
Like at some point, we're gonna be covering those stories on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a little peek, maybe have a listen. Yeah, but it's interesting. But I still gotta. I'll work out how I feel about it. Maybe I'll know by the time we finish the book. But
I think wonder maybe if you would have preferred it if that reveal happened closer to the end.
Maybe.
But yeah, so circling back to here, you were commenting about like Andrew's unnatural strength, and I wanted to call back to this because this was foreshadowed much earlier in the story. When Nate was first properly introduced to Andrew, back when he and Clive wanted to measure Andrew's walls, and they shook hands, Nate noticed that Andrew was shaking his hand as though he were afraid of crushing it.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Very nice foreshadowing. Yeah. I feel like the foreshadowing on Andrew as a character, looking back, has actually been pretty good. That I will say. Yeah. It's like you couldn't tell.
When, like, I'm gonna have to ask Zach about this, like, after he listens to these episodes. But, like, when you really think about the shit that he's saying, like, how much of it is actually Christian?
Not much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You just kind of assumed, you know, it's just like, because there are people that are like that righteous, you know, and nobody has cared enough about his beliefs to try and ask any questions. Because I feel like if questions about his beliefs were asked, I feel like he wouldn't have been able to like hold his tongue.
No, he wouldn't have. Because, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, he can't shut up. Even when people tell him to shut up, he can't shut up.
Which is
Like,
just like...
nobody wants to hear what he has to say because he so badly wants to share his beliefs.
Literally. So it's like all it would have taken for these people to find out. I almost want to, like... If they're all, like, looking into this, you know, and, like, doomsday cults and stuff, I would like to say that I would be skeptical of people in the building, but I wasn't.
No.
I wasn't until Andrew seemed a bit too into it.
Something else that I noticed in the last chapter was he freaked out about Kodorovich being in the building the entire time.
Yeah, literally.
But as far as I'm aware, nobody ever told Andrew about Kodorovich before this.
No. Yeah, he was at the meeting.
I don't think he was at that specific meeting.
Oh, was he not?
He was at, like, a church function.
Oh, yeah, he was. Interesting. The thing I felt that gave that bit away to me a little bit was the way that he replied to the information. Because he wasn't like, you know, oh my God, I can't believe you found a dead body. He replied as if he had been looking.
Yeah.
He was like, you found him. You know? Like, oh my God, you found the guy that we've been looking for.
You found the guy that I've been looking for.
Literally, it was very much like that, you know? I was like,
Yeah.
It tipped me off to Andrew's intentions very, like, blatantly in the previous chapter, which is annoying because I feel like, I don't know, like I haven't been paying enough attention to Andrew, you know, and not thinking about it enough, you know?
Nah.
I feel like I should have worked it out
right?
earlier.
Like he's a character you don't want to think about.
Yeah. True, he is a character you don't want to think about. But also, I feel like I should have started thinking about it more just from the context of knowing that the book has to go somewhere that introduces the family, you know? Because the second I did start thinking about that, it was like, oh, there's got to be someone in the building, obviously, because they would know where the building is, or...
When I first read this, I had no idea. Like, I knew nothing about story structure. I had no idea, like, where this was going to go. I was just, like, here for the ride, and I thought it was awesome.
That's fair. That makes sense.
But yeah, so this chapter ends with Andrew formally introducing his spiritual brothers to Clive and Debbie. He's like, this is Auntie Bradbury, this is Zebediah, this is Lucas, this is Charles, and Howard. And he's like, they're all members of my congregation. You could say we're a family.
Roll credits, like...
Chapter 65. How the family sabotaged Kvatch, and how the building went somewhere else. So this was an interesting chapter. Much like the last one, it's not from Nate's point of view at all. Well, that's not true. It's a little bit from Nate's point of view.
It's from a couple of different points of views.
In this chapter, it's like a real action movie, right? Like, it's cutting to a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah. Which is really cool. First perspective, Tim. Scooby-Doo himself.
So the interesting thing that I caught here is that there was a little bit of self-criticism about, like, how, you know, he's slipping in his old age. Like, he didn't catch what was happening quick enough, and he feels like if he was younger, he would have.
Yeah, for sure. That was very interesting. I like that. And then it's like, oh, he notices a low rumble, and then he doesn't quite clock onto it fast enough. But when he does, he's like straight under his bed, and he's pulling out these cases. And I was like, oh, Tim has guns. I was like, this man has guns. And so he like...
This man has guns.
Yeah. He grabs his gun from under the thing and starts heading out because, like, he's like, oh, the building, like, something's going on and it's got to be, like, Debbie and Clive's apartment. So,
POV shifts to Nate and Veek, who were in his apartment fooling around.
Yeah, about to get freaky. And then Nate is like, do you notice this throbbing? Which I was
So
like,
honestly, I think they had already gotten freaky and were planning on getting more freaky
That's
because
fair.
she was naked other than her socks.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, so they they were getting freaky, and then he like as the book goes, it's like Nick crouches down next to her naked legs to feel the floor vibrating. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he like feels the floor and he's like, something's wrong, and then they like put their fucking clothes on, just in time to hear Tim banging on the door,
Yeah.
and then they go storming off, and then it cuts
And then
to
POV shift to Zila,
Zila.
who the narration specifically says she noticed what was happening immediately after Nate and Veek did. Right? Like, she was in the middle of, like, painting, like, an optical illusion kind of thing, or at least that's what she was going for, and then she just had to acknowledge that she was, like, making crap. And then it kind of talked about, like, the plight of a poor artist, how she has to reuse her canvases over and over, getting cheap crap from Michaels.
Yeah, and I found this, like, they like, hung on this for longer than I expected them to, and it was, like, they keep implying that the building is fucking up her like creative juices, and I feel like
Is that the impression you're getting?
yeah, because it's like, oh, she hasn't had a dream in ages, you know, and it's like she's been uninspired since she moved there, and so there's been like this implication that the building, whatever's going on with the building, is like fucked with her creative mojo, and
Maybe it's the apartment room itself.
maybe, yeah. But she's like painting the building, and I think that might be some kind of implication that is like, or something that's like aiming in the direction of trying to show that, you know, that she kind of knows that that's what's fucking her up a little bit. So she needs to like paint it and get it out of her system or whatever. But yeah, she's trying to draw like paint these like portraits of the building, and it says like the 4th or 5th one or something that she's tried to do with the building. None of them particularly good.
Did it say that she was painting the building?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that part.
Yeah, she's been painting the building. I think a couple of times she's painted the building, and none of them have been particularly good. And she's painting not just like the building as in like the brick, but like she's painting what's inside the building, kind of like blueprinty style.
Okay.
Which was really cool. I liked that a lot. And they talked about her having an interaction with like her art teacher, who was like saying that understanding and being like aware enough to know that your art is bad is a vital step in becoming a better artist. And then it's like Zila is definitely ready, more than ready, for whatever the step after that is.
Yeah, she's tired of making crap.
Yeah, she's like, very ready to move on.
But then that's when she notices what's going on.
Yeah,
because
she notices the
she feels
sky.
the vibration. She pulls out her earbuds. She looks outside. She sees that like shit is not good outside, and then that's when she hears the trio running down the stairs.
She gets outside just in time to see them, I do believe. Stairs at the end of the
POV
hall.
shift to Mandy fretting about her credit score. Hey, Jake, did you know that the banks and the government are one big socialist group?
No?
I didn't.
I didn't know this. Absolute memes. This bit cracked me up. I'm not going to lie to you. So she's like, Mandy's checking her credit score stuff. She sees the storm outside. She's like, oh, the fucking weather as well. She's like really down on herself. And then she feels the building shaking. She's like, oh, another fucking earthquake. You know?
Yeah.
Just kind of not really giving anything much thought at all. Just in time
like
for
her computer like flashes off.
Yeah.
And, like she witnessed it happen and she's like, oh great, the storm fucked up my computer.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna have to like go get a favor from Veek. Like there's this subtle implication that she thinks Veek like both points of view that we ever get from her, from that first one way back when and this one, there's this implication that she thinks Veek is a lesbian that wants to fuck her.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I didn't pick up on that, actually. I didn't pick up on that. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, because she's like, whatever I can give Veek that Veek wants
And in the first point of view that we ever got from her, she was talking about like doing Veek a favor, like probably how Veek would want a favor from her.
Yeah, interesting, strange. This episode is not brought to you by spoilers. Follow the Patreon, otherwise every single episode there will be spoilers dropped.
As my good friend Parker Ross once said, fuck spoiler culture.
Dumbledore dies.
Dumbledore
gets
dies.
Set free.
Vader is Luke's father.
Fucking...
The Cabbage Building is a apocalypse prevention machine.
Fucking... What other spoilers? Oh, fuck.
Bruce Willis is a ghost.
Oh, Bruce Willis is a fucking ghost. That's a good one.
Will Smith is a Greek god.
Oh, fair. Fucking Robert Downey Jr. is Doom. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
That's sick.
Tony Stark dies.
He does.
Oh, God. I spoiled that for Leno. I just fucking blurted that shit out without thinking after I watched the movie.
That's the worst.
I felt so fucking bad about it.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad one.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't want spoilers like this in every other episode that comes out, I would highly suggest jumping on over to the Patreon. Links in the description.
Yeah, if you join the Patreon, you get to skip this mid-break bit where I will not spoil shit for you. Back to the show. But yeah, so then like her computer flashes back on, and it's like a bunch of weird like green squiggles and shit.
Yeah, and the description is so fucked up.
It is, isn't it?
It's so fucked up. It's like the screen was showing vertical blue letters, and it was some sort of chicken scratch or bizarre language that they use in weird countries that don't like using real letters.
Don't use a normal alphabet, a normal language.
I was like, what the fuck, Mandy? Jesus. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Chicken scratch. I was like, what the fuck? That's so brutal.
Yeah, and it was just like nonsense green symbols to her, and then like a circle appeared in the center with little. She was like little hooks were coming off of it, or were they tentacles?
That's too weird. I don't know why. I don't know why they would put that in. Like, what the fucking Cthulhu is connecting to the sentience of a fucking laptop, like. That I don't know. That bit doesn't quite make sense to me.
But then the POV shifts to Andrew.
Yeah.
Who is just so unbelievably over the moon that it's finally happening. Like this, like Andrew is blowing his spiritual load.
He really is. He's a joyous man. And it's like he's invited his whole family along to pull all the levers, flick all the switches, twist all the dials, and like really go to town in making sure that this machine is never gonna be able to be put back on the settings that are required ever again.
Yep, and then everything started to change, and they began to pray in front of the console.
Yes, and so it then switches POV again, doesn't it?
To Roger. And
Roger's just got off work, surprisingly early. So, like, the call sheet for the day, they were expecting to end, like, super late. But the actor was on point. There was a whole bunch of one-ers. Everyone was super surprised. Even, like, after the wrap, when they had to go back and do some last-minute reshoots on some scenes, they really didn't take long. And Roger was, like, heading home so early. He was really shocked. And just as he's walking down the street, he sees like a group of people, outside the building, looking at the building, and then he notices that the building's fucking glowing.
And the bricks were flickering like static.
Yeah, which is so fucking weird. And so he starts running towards the building. And as he's running past, he sees the green Taurus, the popped airbag, and the blood of poor man from the Taurus. He gets to the gate and is trying to get into the building, and then there's a whole bunch of people trying to like stop him, and they like pull in on his bag and his jacket and stuff, and they like pull his jacket off him, take his bag off him and stuff. And he like just punches a woman in the face during this.
Just straight up punched a woman in the face and kept running.
Yeah. And then this descriptor was fucking gross. But he gets close to the building, and it was like, as he gets closer to the building, the air was thick like curdled milk to breathe.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was like trying to get through, and all of the static.
Like this weird barrier, like keeping him from getting in, but he made it in like just in time.
Yeah, and it felt like fucking bees were stinging him as he was trying to like fight through the thick putrid air, like blood air, fucking hanging. And then he dives in through the doors, and he
like, without knowing it, he instinctually knew he made it in just in time.
Yeah, which is, I part of me wants to be really cynical and be like, probably wasn't just in time. He probably could have, you know, been maybe 10 seconds later, you know, like it probably wasn't just in time. Maybe a minute. He probably could have got away with being like a minute later, you know, like, I don't know.
Well, as soon as he gets in, the building like howled and shifted its space, and then the building was somewhere else,
somewhere where it shouldn't be, or according to Andrew, it was exactly where it should be. You know, it's all a matter of perspective.
Really is. It's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah. And this whole time, I was genuinely like, where the fuck is Oscar? It's like, where the fuck is Oscar? What is he doing? What's happening? Not on Blueprint. Chapter 66. How Tim incapacitated the family, and how the tenants saw the true enemy approaching.
So I love how we shift into like a fourth arc. Not on Blueprint.
Yeah. Yeah. I missed that title, that arc title.
So Nate, he felt violently sick, and we get this curdled milk description again.
Yeah.
Like he could taste it in his mouth.
Grim.
Yeah.
That's the taste of dimensional shift.
Curdled milk.
Literally.
I'd want to vomit too.
I know, right? Nate and Veek are like keeled over a little bit. They don't know what happened. They're both like throwing up. And Tim somehow hasn't thrown up and is still standing, which is...
But he looked queasy.
He does look queasy, but he's like holding it together. And
then like just this amazing action sequence that afterwards, from Nate's point of view, was like, that couldn't have been longer than 15 seconds.
So Tim kicks the fucking door down.
Yep.
First guy runs at Tim with a knife. Tim, like, removes the knife from his hand, punches him in the face, punches him in the gut. He falls over. Then Tim pulls out, and I love this description, an abnormally large TV remote.
This is a weird thing, right? Because Nate never actually forms in his mind the word gun.
No, he doesn't. He's like, what? Why has he got a TV remote? And then it goes off twice, and then 2 bits of brass ping out the side, and he realizes what it was. And so, yeah, Tim, the first guy, Tim just fucking breaks his neck. That's what happens.
Yeah.
He, like, punches him to the ground, and then he just, like, grabs his neck and just breaks his fucking neck. I was like, wow.
And then the other guy runs at him with a knife, and Tim shoots him 3 times.
Yeah.
And then he goes into the apartment where they could see that Clive had thrown up.
Mhm.
And there was another crouching man with a knife. Tim shot him twice. And then another larger man reached out, and then Tim broke 2 of his fingers and then pistol whipped him.
Yeah. And then Auntie Bradbury started heading over. Doesn't he shoot him as well?
Yeah, no, so this guy's mouth opened so wide, his head split in half.
Yeah.
And so he shot the man in the eye.
Yeah. Which was gross. And then Auntie Bradbury
gross.
starts heading over, and Andrew's like, no, Auntie Bradbury. There's no point. We've already won.
Right, basically.
Yeah.
So she relents, and then Tim's like, get down on the ground. And she did. And Nate was like, this couldn't have been longer than 15 seconds.
Yeah.
He made it look so easy.
I know. The part that annoys me following this is he keeps Tim keeps telling Andrew to shut the fuck up, but with no consequences.
Yeah, like, I really wish he just shot the fucker.
I totally understand why he didn't. Like, I genuinely do understand why he didn't shoot him. But just fucking take his toes off or something. Like, shoot him in the foot or
Fucking
something.
pistol whip him.
Pistol whip him. Because I know that you've got to keep him alive because you need to find out how many people are in the family. There's, like, so much information that man fucking has that you need to try and get out of him, you know? And you need one of the cultists who can communicate to survive. And Andrew is the one that you need at that point because, you know, Auntie Bradbury's.
I mean, they've known him the longest.
Yeah.
And Auntie Bradbury is a fucking wackadoo. Like, more so than Andrew.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to keep the most cognitive one alive. But it's so annoying. I just wanted him to get, like, fucking beat.
So Nate and Clive, they look for zip ties and then zip tie the 2 remaining ones. And like, yeah, Andrew was just like blissed out, like, we've attained freedom. And Tim's like, shut up. And Andrew didn't care. Like, he kept monologuing nonsense and Tim told him to shut up again. And Clive and Nate, like, you know, did what they needed to do. And Zila and Roger showed up and Tim like points his gun at them and they're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah,
and he's like, sorry.
Old habits. And I was like, old habits? What habits, my guy? What books have you been publishing?
Well, so then, yeah, Veek straight up asked him, like, let me guess. You read it in a book you published?
Yeah.
And then he was just like, and I loved this bit. He was like, let's just say before I retired, I worked for an organization best known by 3 letters.
To which Roger was like, IBM.
I love that.
Yeah, it was too funny. It was like, it was known by like 3 letters, and then like, was it 3 letters and then another 3 letters, and then was there something like that? Oh, no,
he just said best known by 3 letters, and he said admitting that was definitely violating like, some federal laws.
I think I saw that in a fucking TV show I watched not that long ago. Yeah, I did. It was in 3 Body Problem.
What?
There was a guy in 3 Body Problem who is like working for some secret organization thing, you know? And it was all like 3-letter. It was like, who do you work for? And he was like, I've worked for a lot of different people. It was MI5, then it was this, then it was this 3, and they were all 3 letters. So I confused that with this for some reason.
So there's 2 or 3 organizations that leap to mind that he could have worked for.
CIA, FBI.
CIA. And HSA.
HSA.
The Homeland Security Administration.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like it's more likely the CIA or the FBI.
I think CIA.
You think CIA?
I think CIA over FBI. Yeah, FBI's
I
not
think
as,
that makes sense because he can speak Russian or read it.
Yeah, you know, and he's like can pick locks as well, so it's like very spy vibes.
Very, very secret agent man spy vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so then they look outside and they see just this fucking crazy landscape and giant fucking whale things with, now Nate realizes, not bat wings, but more accurately, dragon wings. And it's where there should be a head, there's fucking just
tentacles.
A bush of tentacles.
Yeah, so I just kind of imagine them as like almost dragons. But instead of like a head, they have like just a tentacle head thing.
So this chapter ends with like Nate basically just looking at these things.
Yeah.
Most of them looked like they were over 200 feet long. The largest of them was 4 times that size. And they were all just like lazily moving through the air toward the Cabbage building. And that's how this chapter ends.
Yeah.
Chapter 67, how Oscar was taken by a monster.
This bit fucking pissed me off.
It was very frustrating, yeah.
It wasn't just like
we
frustrating though.
Finally get some answers from Oscar, but we don't actually learn anything of substance.
I know. I fucking know. And like, so Oscar bursts into the room. He's like, what have you fucking done? You know, they explain it
Fair
was
enough.
Andrew, you know, and, you know, Oscar's like, oh, that's fucking shit. Andrew's horrible. Then they try and work out who's still in the building, don't they?
Yeah, so I jotted this down. We learned the names of some of the other tenants.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Mr. Cook, Mr. Brogan, he's in apartment 1, Miss Little in apartment 24, Mr. Clayman in apartment 11, and then Mrs. Knight was in 4.
Yeah.
He said that all of them, except for Cayman and Knight, work late. He wasn't sure where Cayman and Knight were. And that's when Roger admitted, like, he was pretty sure she was dead.
That's such a
And Oscar,
large amount of people to be on night shift in the building, though.
I think that actually makes a ton of sense to me, right? Like, they don't want people, the people that they sought out to be in this building were people that were least likely to question the goings on of the building.
That makes sense.
So, like, having people that are predominantly night shifters totally works.
Yeah, I get you. That does make sense.
Because they're going to be gone at night and they're going to be sleeping throughout the day.
Yeah.
So they're even less likely to question the shit that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That makes perfect sense, actually. The other guy, though, they just don't check on him that I know of so far.
Mr. Cayman.
Yeah,
no,
they don't
check on him.
It's like there could just be another guy in the fucking building, like wondering what's going on.
At no point did this guy Cayman come out of his apartment and be like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah, but like,
so I feel like he's not there.
But I also feel like he doesn't. Because he's not a part of what's been going on at all. You know, he's not been mentioned at all.
No.
So like, I don't know. They're just going on faith that he's not in, and like, why would he suspect anything? Like, I assume he would just think that there was some kind of earthquake, and then he would look out the window and he'd be like, "What the fuck?" And then he would probably just hide.
Maybe that's entirely possible.
You know, like this poor man is just fucking hiding somewhere. You know,
maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just not there. Who's to say? Maybe he was out on a date or something.
Maybe
visiting family.
Yeah, and so they talk about that, and then
Roger tells Oscar that Mrs. Knight is dead, and all Oscar has to say about it is, "That's too bad. She was a good tenant."
Which is
like he doesn't question the information.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar knows. I don't know. I feel like when I was like, Oscar doesn't know anything, I feel like I was being stupid. I'm not gonna lie to you. Of course he knows. Of course, like, he's the building manager. And it makes so much sense listening to this, where he's like, he was told just enough to stay on top of things and try and fix things if they go wrong, but not enough to know entirely what's happening. And then he was told not to question it. And he says that he was
told, what he needed to know, and that, like, all he knows is what he was told and what he worked out on his own.
Yes.
Which kind of ties back into your theory. I think it's very likely that probably what happened was he was investigating the building, and then he found out what was going on.
Yeah.
To a similar degree that these modern day tenants figured out what was going on, and then they made him the building manager.
Yeah, literally. It's like when you hire hackers because they've hacked you.
Right.
Yeah.
He said, I liked his metaphor, right? Like, he knows, like, the comparison he made is like, it's like knowing that a car needs gas to work, but not knowing what the car did with the gasoline to make it work.
Yeah, so it's like you can drive a car as well, without knowing how the combustion engine is
So,
running.
like, he knows how this shit works, but he doesn't know how it works.
Yeah, exactly. He knows how to use it to a degree, but he doesn't know what it is.
They were just like, you need to tell us everything you know. And he's just like, a man in a suit hired me. I think he worked for the government.
And
the reason why he thinks it was from the government is because he gets his paychecks from the Department of the Treasury.
Yeah, and there's a Statue of Liberty on the thing. What I really liked was his breakdown of, like, what's happened. So he was saying that the Kvatch building is the key. The key to the lock of the other dimensions, right? And so when you put a key in lock, no matter which side you put the key in, the same part of the key stays in the same place when you unlock the door.
In the middle, in between spaces,
So he was like, the building is the key, balance is the key being in the middle, but it doesn't matter which side of the lock the key is on, or like the key is plugged into the lock, the lock still works, the key still works to unlock the thing. And he was like, if the key was no longer in the lock, everyone would be dead, which is how we know it's still working. And he was saying, all we have to do is just put the key back on the other side of the lock, and we can forget this all happened.
And then he starts to get into how to do that, and then he gets fucking eaten.
Yeah, a tentacle swings in through the window.
Well, hold on, we're skipping ahead a little bit.
We are skipping ahead a little bit,
Before he gets into how to do that, the monsters get close enough that they can hear them talking.
Yeah, but the monsters don't talk normally.
No, it's a very simplistic speech, and like the act of talking to the humans like makes them bleed out of their orifices.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was described as Veek was crying blood, and a lot of people had blood coming out of their nose or their ears.
Yeah, and their mouth, and apparently Tim had it the worst. I think it's because, so the theory on that, I do believe, is that, I don't know whether that's this or the next chapter, though, where they say...
Tim had it the worst.
Yeah, because Tim... so funny. He's saying that everybody's got blood, like, pouring out of their eyes and their ears. It's just, like, it's quite a lot of blood, but it's not, like, And then he looks over at Tim, and Tim just looks like a fucking mess. His whole face is just dark red blood dripping down onto his top.
I missed that part.
Yeah, he had it way worse than everyone else.
But it kind of makes sense because he's the oldest of them, I think.
Yeah.
Except maybe Oscar.
And I also feel like he would be the one that would be able to fight it off the most. Because it's not just talking, it's like an intrusion into their brain. So...
It was saying shit like, hunt you, kill you, eat you, feed, my cattle, my prey, my food, my mortal servants, mine.
But it wasn't like, they weren't hearing the words necessarily. Not all of them, and it was different for everyone. The communication was the same way of communicating, which was like forced thoughts into the head of each person.
Yeah.
But... for some people, it was images. For some people, it was words. And it was, like, varying. But they all kind of got the idea that they were cattle. And Roger was like, oh, my, are we the burgers?
So this chapter ends with Oscar, like, you know, they're all, like, after the monsters, like, fly past the building, which, by the way, they bring such a gale of force with them that, like, it shook the building and shattered the windows again.
To which Oscar's like, the fucking windows again.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny that his response is so relaxed to all this.
Because it makes sense if he's the guy that knows, okay, we just need to, like, put it all back the way that it was.
Yeah, and if
so
he
it's
knows...
like, as he's about to tell them that, a fucking tentacle just swoops in through the window, wraps it around his head, and yanks him out of there.
Yeah. I was furious. I was like, that's such a cheap way of doing that. You know, it's like, I don't know. I just felt like it was such a lazy... It's so lazy. Do you get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's like, there's way more interesting ways to remove... So have you seen what was that fucking really shitty Shark B movie? Have you seen
Sharknado?
No, they're like underwater. They're like in a submarine. And there's like this scene where Samuel L. Jackson is like he's by there's this big opening and he's talking about how they're gonna get out of there, and he's doing like a big rally speech. And then the giant fucking megalith shark jumps out of the water and just eats him, you know? And it just reminded me of that. And that was like, I don't know. I don't know when this as a trope became a thing. But I just
It's bad writing to so obviously remove your one answer to all of the problems right before the answers are provided.
Yeah, literally. And it's so...
No, I get you.
It's like, because you can do it in much more interesting ways. You can do it...
I think it would have been fine if he had, like, actually begun to provide a little bit of information of substance first.
Or...
Like, if he had even just started to explain, and then he was taken, that would have been a little bit better. But no, he was taken right before he even said anything of substance.
Yeah, or if there was a situation where he wasn't in the building even, you know? And they had to work it out.
Like if he just wasn't there at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be better. That's more understandable.
I get you.
You know, and you put it for a reason prior. You don't just kill him off. Chapter 68. How the Mystery Gang got the lay of the land from the roof.
So, Mandy just starts fucking screaming her head off.
Yeah. Understandably.
But, like, Tim could tell, like, the way that she was screaming that she would peter out soon because she wasn't, like, stopping for breath.
That's too funny. That cracked me up. Because he was like, he wasn't telling her to be quiet. He was just waiting for her to fucking pass out. To like suffocate to silence. Like, it's too funny.
And how the incident reminded Tim of like how quickly skydivers would disappear.
Yeah.
Like he knew that wherever Oscar was, he was very far away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And I liked the description of Andrew, who was still blissed out, like he was ready to drink his Kool-Aid.
Yeah, drink his Kool-Aid from a paper cup. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Cracked me up. Yeah, I don't know. It's this, I feel like I was slowly tapering off my excitement for what this book was going to become. I'm not going to lie. You know? I was like enjoying the mystery more than I guess this payoff has become. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, like, it's tough, right? Like, when you've got, like, such a big mystery, like, finding out what the mystery is never as exciting as, like, wondering what the mystery is.
Yeah, but also it's like, I was really excited because they revealed what the mystery was already. It wasn't like in the final chapters, everything kind of makes sense. You know?
So what were you, like, hoping for then?
I guess I was kind of hoping that whatever the mystery was was going to reveal itself right at the end, so that there was like all of the wires come together to make, like a cohesive. But instead it's been, yes, there's a lot of mysteries that have come together, but it all comes together in a way that you fully understand the whole situation before the end of the book, and it's all just recycled material.
I don't know.
Like, I kind of, do you get what I mean though, a little bit? I mean, it's not all recycled material.
I feel like you're being a little bit more cynical about it than me.
That's fair.
Like, I feel like the idea of enough people in the world existing to, like, break down a dimensional barrier, like, I've never heard that idea, and I don't think that's in any of Lovecraft's books.
True. That is an interesting idea. I do like that one. I think I have heard something about that before, actually. In, like, some fucking hippy-dippy, like... in like some hippy dippy circles.
Sure. Sure.
Where it's like, yeah. But so I get you. It's not all recycled material, is what I will say. And I was very on board for the first half. I feel like the H.P. Lovecraft angle definitely put a damper on it for me. But and I guess kind of like the payoff hasn't been as good as I was hoping it to be. There's still over an hour left of the audiobook after this chapter, after we're done, though.
Yeah. Like, so, give it a chance.
I'll give it a chance.
Let's finish it and see how you feel when we're done. Yeah.
But at this point, I'm like, it's tapering a little bit for me. Especially with, like, some of the tropes of, like, Oscar gets sucked off. No, he doesn't. Oscar gets ripped out of the building by a tentacle. Fucking woo! That is.
Are you sure? Are you sure he doesn't get sucked off by a giant alien monster?
Maybe. So what? Another thing that we breezed over was Nate saw inside the tentacles when he looked out the window.
Yeah, he saw something that looked like reflective, like maybe 20 or 30 feet wide or something.
Yeah. There's such big creatures.
In the mass.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in this chapter, that's where they talk about how, like, these things spoke to them in their mind.
Yeah.
Like, Veek she heard words, but she also saw images.
Yeah.
And so they went to the roof, and they saw the machine room was damaged. They propped the roof door open enough that, like, they could run, they wouldn't need to run one by one to get back in if they needed to.
Yeah.
They saw that the squid whale things were like 2 miles away. They saw one rip a palm tree out of the ground and eat it whole.
Yeah, I don't think they chew. I think it just, like, whatever it is just gets sucked up into that, like, reflective orb in their mouth. You know?
But yeah, so they went over a ridge and vanished, and Zila could see, like, a tower in the distance, and it looked very old to her.
I wonder what that tower is. That seems so interesting to me.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
That is interesting. I want to know what that tower is.
It's the Dark Tower.
I think my theory on what that tower is it's probably something that was built by the Katurovich team when they were investigating this dimensional thing.
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
But yeah, also the sun deck was now on the ground.
Oh yeah, shattered into pieces with one of the deck chairs just sitting upright normally in the middle of all the rubble. Landed perfectly.
For some reason, Nate thinks there's a chance that Oscar might still be alive.
I think that's just wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's...
So then this is where they talk about, like, what the monsters all said, and they have that conversation about cattle, like, being bred for slaughter. Much of the machinery for the machine room had crumbled, and much of the machinery had fallen into the elevator shaft.
Yeah.
so they wondered like if the tunnel came with them, and so, I don't
Ooh.
remember who, but one of them suggested that might be a good place to hide, and
Yeah.
Roger was like, "Good place to die." Like if
Yeah.
one of those things comes swooping past again, like the tunnel could collapse.
True. That is, yeah, those tunnels didn't seem sturdy at all, to be honest.
Nope. So then they all looked at the landscape, and Roger was pretty sure that it was still the same landscape as in LA,
Mm,
other than the lack of buildings.
yeah. Which is
Because,
cool.
like, so the landscape, it was just, like, rocky hillsides.
Mhm. Yeah, and they point out where the Hollywood sign would have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is, honestly, it is quite interesting. Because, like, it raises a lot of questions in my mind. Because I think they start talking about what the plan of action is going to be now. You know? Because the monsters are gone. They're stuck where they are currently.
Chapter 69. How the Mystery Gang discussed what they should do next.
They need to have a plan of action for how to work out how to get out of this situation.
Well, so Nate was like basically talking about like the resources they have. He's like, we have bottled water to drink.
Mm-hmm.
There's water in the toilet tanks for anything else. Yeah. We still have power, so the generators and all that probably did come along with us.
Yeah.
And they all have food in their refrigerators, so they have enough to survive for a few days while they figured out how to get back. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he was like, we have enough to survive for a few days, and then somebody asked him, then what? And he's like, well, hopefully then we'll be back.
Yeah. And Tim was like, I'm under 24-hour surveillance, and there's some very smart people who will be looking to find me if I go missing. If Guy and Taurus
and then that's when
doesn't
Roger
see me.
says,
Yeah.
I think Taurus Man is dead.
Yeah, and Tim was kind of like, oh, fuck.
But, I mean, the good news is, because we learned this from Carmichael, if he doesn't report in within a certain amount of time, that raises the alarms. So, even though he's dead, there are still going to be people that come to investigate.
Yeah, but that is a couple of hours away. And when they get there, you do not know whether they are going to be able to work out what the fuck happened.
Yeah. Because I believe Oscar said that the building is still in the exact same place as it always has been.
Yeah.
And from anybody looking from the outside in, the building will still be there.
Yeah, but what was it? Roger did mention that it was kind of like glowing when he went in, but we don't know whether that's still the case now or not.
Right. Exactly. The question that occurs to me is, so when they are in the Kvatch building normally in LA, is there still a version of this building on the other side? Is that why compasses don't fucking work when you're in the building? Because, like, the compass is confused where the fuck it is.
Yeah. That makes sense, actually. Yeah. Because it's like, it's picking up on different dimensional. But also, I don't know. Because we don't know what magnetic pull is coming from the machine either.
That's also a point.
Because it's like, you don't know what's in the walls, and what's in the walls is glowing. And there's a lot of interesting, weird shit happening. So they also haven't explained why people are killing themselves in 16.
No, they haven't.
Like that.
But I mean, like, so that's the other thing too, though, right? Like, we have an explanation for the big. We have the big explanation, but we still don't actually have an explanation for a lot of the weird stuff.
True.
Like, we don't know why Veek's apartment is always 69 degrees. We don't know why Nate's apartment has a black light. We don't know why people get wigged out in apartment 5 and kill themselves in apartment 16.
I think the black light is just because of the stuff on the walls in Nate's kitchen. That would be my assumption.
But why is it whatever bulb you put in there, it's always a black light?
Fuck if I know. That's fair. That is fair. They probably it was designed that way. We also don't know about why the cockroaches are mutant. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of unanswered and not a lot of time left in this book for all of those questions to be answered. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, so they sort out a plan.
Yeah.
Like Nate suggests that they split into 2 teams. One that will take some bicycles that are in the building to go find Oscar.
Yeah.
And the other team like to figure out how to like get this shit arranged the way it needs to be arranged to like get back home. And then Tim makes actually a very good suggestion, which is how about instead we go check out Oscar's apartment. I think that's a very good good suggestion.
That is a very good suggestion. And so that's where
how the chapter ends.
That's where the chapter ends. And is that where this episode ends?
That's where this episode ends.
And I, not gonna lie, even though I said, I'm not as interested as I was earlier, as I was like halfway through the book, I still want to. Yeah, I'm gonna go finish the book now. I'm still gonna go finish this whole fucking book now.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly certain what the final chapter will be, but the next episode we will be discussing chapters 70 through 76, and then the final episode will be whatever the rest of the chapters are.
Thank you all for listening. This has been Functionally Literate. Leave comments, and you can do that on Spotify, or you can do the funk.lit Gmail and send in emails. There's
funk.lit.pod
yeah, there we go.
gmail.com.
That one right there. Yeah.
Also, thank you, Josh Hughes. He's our first patron.
Legend. Hey, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you. Genuinely.
Yeah.
Thank you. With your contributions here in a few months, I'm going to be able to actually buy some books.
Whoop, whoop.
Not out of pocket. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, thanks for listening. I'm going to go finish this book now.
Bye.
Bye.